Is the universe infinite? Is it a sphere? Is it neither? This is the ultimate scientific debate of the 21st century, similarly to how ancient philosophers had conflicting accounts on whether our planet was round or flat. Now, the answer to this question seems obvious. The Earth is round, so perhaps the universal question can be answered in a similarly precise manner. For now, we can only merely speculate, but perhaps we should think beyond the ideas already established. Let's start from the beginning. Scientists have largely agreed that our universe began in an event known as the Big Bang. More recently, it has been theorized that it will end in a big crunch. However, this is where the science contradicts its own field. A firmly established principle exists stating that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So when the energy of an object or being appears to diminish, it is merely being transferred, not lost. We also know that the universe consists of energy, and that according to the Big Bang theory, it was energy that formed the stars and the planets that grew to constitute the universal expanse. But if the universe consists of energy, then the creation of itself in the Big Bang event was simply a massive explosion of energy. If this is where it began, then there was nothing beforehand. We can only conclude, therefore, that out of this nothingness, a massive quantity of energy was created as the first thing, which we now know as the Big Bang. Since we know that energy cannot be created, we can establish that the Big Bang event did not happen, or at least not in a fashion adjacent to how it is currently envisioned. It can be deduced that before the alleged Big Bang, the universe, or energy, had already existed, as it had forever. If the universe existed before and after the event, then what was the Big Bang? Furthermore, what will the Big Crunch be if energy cannot be destroyed? Therefore, two primary conclusions can be made. One is that the universe is infinite, but this opinion raises suspicion because of the lack of evidence to conclude this. It would be like a 12th century explorer concluding that the Earth is infinite just because he hadn't seen everything yet. Although the argument is understandable and not as obviously a contradiction as the creation and destruction theories were, perhaps it is more productive to speculate that the universe is something smaller. It could be a circular timeline. Other shapes, such as squares or triangles, have a beginning and an end. It begins with one corner or line and ends with the third, in the case of triangles, fourth, fifth, sixth, etc. A circle, however, lacks a defined beginning and ending, similarly to how the universe cannot create or destroy things. We should also dispute the alleged fact that the universe is growing, because where does this growth come from? If the universe cannot create anything, how can it grow? This further encourages the accuracy of the circular theory, as the universe wouldn't let it grow or shrink, but rather travel through different directions within time. If you draw a circle and place a dot anywhere along the perimeter of the shape, this is where we can say the universe begins. If the universe moves around the perimeter of the circle, the point at which it has traveled the maximum distance, at the Big Crunch, it will have simply returned to the same point at which it began. Therefore, we can speculate that, despite not being infinite, an attempt to reach its edge could never be achieved because it simply does not obtain one. If the Big Bang happened, it was also the big crunch of the last cycle. But that assumes that there really is a dot on the circle's perimeter. If it has no beginning, where would you place the dot? This further enforces the idea that the Big Bang or Big Crunch did not in fact occur, as it had no definitive location to start at, since there would be infinitely many corners to start from, unlike with a square, for example, where there are only 4 options. If the universe is not infinite and does not begin or end, then it must travel through a cycle of time, where it advances in time until reaching the halfway point, at which time it slowly descends as it approaches the starting point. Some might argue that this would suggest not completing half of the circle, but rather repeating the opposing half twice. It must be understood, however, that since there is no true starting point, the entire circle is covered over time, as the starting point moves after each cycle by an infinitely small amount. Though it would take an infinite amount of time for the point to migrate across the perimeter of the entire circle, it theoretically would, as it is always moving. It would just take an infinite duration of time. If you feel you have learned something valuable from this video, let me know in the comments. If you think I'm not quite getting the right idea about the universal workings, tell me why you think so. I will be responding to as many of your comments as I can. Please do not forget to share and subscribe if you want to keep exploring the nature of reality